Hello everyone. Good afternoon. I can see a few new people today with us, and obviously we have people that have joined the first time. But I just want to say thank you all for taking time to sort of like join this workshop. This is very important to us. This is basically our COVID-19 recovery plans. We've had already the first workshop, so if you guys haven't seen it, my best advice really to you guys is make sure you go online, and if you go onto URBOND's website, www.urbond.org, as you can see on the screen there, you will be able to sort of like access it via blog. And then if you click on blog, that will basically take you to sort of like every single thing we do. And that is basically the first workshop we had on mental health and well-being. Okay, so if you click on it, you will see everyone that was on it, and then also you will have a brief summary of what was done. And we've attached basically the presentations onto it, so you can access the presentations using the links. Okay, so please, guys, make sure you go and check this out, because it will all make sense to you what we're planning to do. Okay. Again, this is basically, as I said, this is like our recovery plan for the COVID-19. Our special guest, again, is Caroline Barber. We're looking to sort of like, work with Caroline to try and get back to sort of like normality. Okay. Caroline has got massive amount of knowledge in this field. She's from the Good Mental Health Cooperative. So make sure you ask questions, because that's what we want to see. We want people to join these workshops and ask questions. You just don't want to join it and then just like not ask any questions. So please ask questions, and let's all try and benefit from it. If you have family members that are not here today, just make sure you ask questions on their behalf and then pass it on to everybody. Okay. So that is Caroline, and obviously, if you are again joining us, you can see this is all being put together by URBOND, and you might be asking yourself who URBOND is and what we do. Well, we've been going on since 2013. Since 2013, it's been like 7 years plus now that we've been existing, and we are here. We are a registered charity nationally and internationally. And what we are basically looking to do is to sort of like, we are promoting equality and diversity for the public benefit, eliminating discrimination on the ground of sex or race. We also promoting activities to foster better understanding between people from different backgrounds. We are cultivating a sentiment of equality and diversity. And our second purpose is to sort of like provide education programs to children in need. But most of you guys are here anyway, because I can't, most of you guys know on this call here today, know what URBOND is about anyway. So I'm not going to take time to sort of like go through that by the end of this call, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to be joining us. Toward the end of this call, again, I will ask Caroline's permission to sort of like be able to present URBOND quickly again. But again, this is very important to us, and especially everything going on at the moment. It's very important to us to sort of like put our community members back into sort of like a good mental health, position, and also to give them that strength to sort of like go through this tough time. So again, thank you very much. My best advice again is to sort of like get involved in what we're looking to do, be part of what we're looking to do. As you all can witness and you all can see, URBOND is having a massive impact in the community. Last year, we ran 244 activities, including our charity board. We have a presence in the UK. We have a presence internationally. We are impacting 127 children's lives in Africa. So there's no reason why you shouldn't be a part of it. Let's all come together. Let's all make changes. Let's all sort of like try and support as much as we can. Okay, so I'm not going to take your time again. Again, as I said, you're going to excuse me, because we're going to have a lot of people sort of like joining in, hopefully later on. At the end of this call, again, I'm just going to go through and then introduce everyone and what we do. Okay, without any further delay, please help me welcome Caroline. Thank you very much for your
time. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Usmain. Hello, everyone. I'd like to really just start by thanking Usmain and the wonderful URBOND group for inviting me back to speak again today. 3 weeks ago, I spoke to the group about the mental health challenges of a pandemic, and following feedback from that talk, I was then asked to do another workshop explaining more about the 5 components of good mental health, a kind of framework that I've been using for a number of years. So thank you all for taking the time to tune in to listen, and I hope that you'll feel it's time well spent by the end. So my name is Carolyn Barber. My professional background is in social work, and I'm passionate about promoting greater understanding of mental health and well-being in communities, and also challenging the stigma that often prevents people from discussing things openly. And I also draw on my own experience of a period of mental ill health that helped to inform me and my experiences with other people in similar situations. So I'm a co-founder of a social enterprise called the Good Mental Health Cooperative, and we run a number of community projects in Portsmouth and more widely in Hampshire. Could you move on to the next slide? Oh, brilliant, thanks. So I will just cover a few things that I did talk about last time, just to try and set the scene for those of you that weren't there. In my last talk 3 weeks ago, I asked you what words you associated with mental health. And I've done this with a lot of different groups, and they invariably come up with words as are described on here. If I ask about mental health, people talk about madness, depression, stress, mental illness, psychiatric hospitals. And then if I ask about the term good mental health, words like happiness and well-being, active, motivated, those kind of words come up. So it's become really apparent to me that the words mental health, which should really apply in a general sense, just like physical health as a neutral term, have somehow become linked with all the stigma, fear and ignorance, which kind of characterises our lack of understanding of mental health generally. Next slide, please. So just to be clear where I come from, I believe that we all have mental health, just like we all have physical health, and that there's a spectrum of good to poor mental health. And there's also mental ill health, which can be really disabling and extremely distressing. Most people will go up and down the spectrum between poor mental health and good mental health during the course of our life experience. And some of us go through a period that we may call a breakdown or losing it, whatever the terms are. And just as with physical health, there's some really clear and simple messages we can take on board about how to take care of our mental health. The big difference about where I try and come from in these workshops is that I focus on how to work towards good mental health, no matter what your starting point is, rather than focusing in on the problems and difficulties. So with our physical health, we all know what we're supposed to do to stay healthy. We might not do it, but we know that we need to have a good diet, not drink too much alcohol or smoke, get regular exercise, all those kind of things. But if we get stressed, depressed or anxious, research shows that most people either do nothing, just live with it, eat comfort food or spend time alone, all things which are pretty much guaranteed to make things worse. Next slide, please. So what can we expect now? Here we are in the middle of a global pandemic. We're highly aware of the risks to our physical health, but what does this mean for our mental health? So a good deal of international research has gone on about the psychological impact of different experiences listed here, of quarantine, of disasters, and things like the financial stresses, poor housing and so on. But we now have all these three factors to contend with in the current pandemic. Next slide, please. So just a few figures for those of you that like statistics. The Office of National Statistics has been surveying, sampling the population to find out their attitude towards mental health and what's going on. So just below half of people surveyed have reported high levels of anxiety. And most people, 4 in 5 people, have felt very worried or somewhat worried about the impact of coronavirus on their life. So this has been an incredibly challenging time for people, coping with sudden and dramatic changes in our lives, intense feelings, anxiety about the future, loss of contact with loved ones, experience of illness and bereavement. And with the lifting of lockdown restrictions, different pressures are emerging around decisions on how to socialise, working, going out in the community, school attendance. The stress and anxiety can feel really intense for people, with many fears about health and an uncertain future. And for those still shielding or caring for others, there's an even greater sense of isolation as others are starting to socialise more. The next slide, please. So in my last talk, I showed this graph as well, and I just wanted to re-show it to illustrate the predicted rise in psychological and emotional distress that is predicted in the latter part of this year. So I don't know if you can see it clearly, but the red curve is looking at mental health issues that are likely to affect many more people in the population. So psychic trauma, mental illness, economic injury, so all the stresses around that, and also burnout for lots of people who've been involved particularly in frontline services. Next slide, please. So how can we build psychological resilience? Earlier, I mentioned about running a marathon. I think I did, I can't remember saying that now. But the psychological impact from COVID-19 are a kind of equivalent to running a marathon. So, if we're, no one would imagine that if you decide to run a marathon, you then wake up the next morning and say, okay, I'm going to do it. We would train and prepare ourselves to do that. But how do we prepare now for the mental marathon ahead, and how can we help each other? What can we do to build our resilience individually and collectively in our communities, which is what URBOND are talking about doing. So the last 30 years have seen massive changes around our understanding of mental health and emotional resilience, although this is not widely understood amongst the general public. As I talked about earlier, for most people, mental health is still associated in their minds with mental illness. So one psychologist memorably called this association the dreaded Ds, Ds being disorder, diagnosis, dysfunction, depression, difficulty, and so on. So I kind of compare that with the idea of the 5 C's framework, which is a more positive way of looking at mental health and resilience. So all these, I'm not going to go into these different ways in which our understanding of mental health is, has changed that are on the slide, but just to make the point that all these developments underpin the framework that I'm going to talk to you about. So if you could move on to the next slide. So this is just to introduce the 5 C's framework for good mental health. And I'm going to explain what I mean by a framework. So having a framework can help us make sense out of some quite complex ideas. There's 2 definitions of a framework that are particularly relevant, I think. First, it's a set of coherent ideas or concepts organised in a way that can make them easier to communicate with others. And secondly, a framework can help us, can provide a basis for thinking about what we do and about what it means. So the purpose of what we're doing, influenced by the ideas and research of others. A framework can be used rather like a travel map. Like a map, a framework can help us make decisions about the route that we want to take. And it can also show us that there may be many different ways to get to the same place, according to what we're like individually and our own personal circumstances. So I'll just go through quickly the 5 components and under each of these components, I've added 3 different elements to try and illustrate what I mean by those. So I'm having some difficulty reading the screen at the moment, which you probably are as well. So I'll just read them out. So if I start with character, the features of character are looking at our strengths, skills and resources, understanding our values, and also telling our story, how we do that. Composure is another one, by which I mean spirituality and peace of mind, emotional intelligence, and mindfulness is another feature of composure in a kind of broad sense. So then if I go to connection, connection is about our relationships with our close family and friends. It's also about our wider social network, and it's also about giving our contribution to the world. Creativity, again, is about inspiration and problem solving. So thinking outside the box. It's about fun, imagination, and play, and it's about exploring our creative talents. And the 5th one, challenge, is about stepping outside our comfort zone, setting goals, and our learning and development. So if you go on to the next slide, please. So as I continued to develop this idea of a framework, the 5 C's, I did add a couple of extra features. So sometimes I talk about the 7 C's framework, which I hope won't be too confusing. But first, what I did was I turned the 5 C's into the image of a figure to try and explain the role of the different C's in building emotional resilience and good mental health generally. So if you can see here, I've called the legs character and composure, because that's about how we keep our balance and sort of kind of secure foundations for our mental health. The arms that are reaching out is connection and creativity, which are the ways that we connect out into the world. And challenge, the head, is about kind of learning and development, and our mind really is engaged in challenge. And then I added 2 more C's. So the circle on the outside is curiosity, which it represents looking outwards, being interested in others and the world about us. And the second feature I added was compassion, which was the heart in the centre. And this was because I realised that in looking at the framework for good mental health, we also need to be kind to ourselves and not self-critical in our journey towards good mental health and well-being. So I'm going to move on to talk a little bit more about each of the main 5 C's, and then I'll say a bit more about curiosity and compassion as well. Okay, the next slide, please. Can I just say, which I meant to say at the beginning, if you have any questions or comments, please put those in the chat. I'm actually just going to keep going with my talk rather than answer questions as you put them in. And then I'll come to questions at the end, because sometimes questions get answered in the course of what I'm talking about, if you see what I mean. But if there's anything that I'm saying and you feel I don't understand that, or I'd just like to query that, please pop a question in and I'll come back to those at the end. Okay, so what do we mean by character? This is a picture of my son's football team. He's now 24 and works in a mental health secure unit. But when he was 9 or 10, he was an active footballer. So when we ask people to, I'll just read the quote out. If we ask people to look for deficits, they will usually find them, and their view of the situation will be coloured by this. If we ask people to look for successes, they will usually find it, and their view of the situation will be coloured by this. So when we think about character, just think about our legs and our feet, how our feet ground us and keep us balanced. They help us walk tall and straight, and we neglect looking after our feet at our peril. So I'd like you to think of this, of the right foot as character. It's about knowing ourselves, more self-awareness, having a strong sense of values, knowing the strengths, skills and resources we bring to the table. And it's also about how we tell our own story. Just to another quote about telling a story. It's like everyone tells a story about themselves inside their own head, always, all the time. And that story makes you what you are. We build ourselves out of that story. So good mental health is about having a strong sense of self, being secure in our values, taking pride in our achievements, feeling confident about where we're heading in life. Poor mental health is about those times where we feel like a victim of circumstances, buffeted around by life. So someone experiencing a period of mental ill health will often have completely lost sight of their own story. They'll feel very fragmented, powerless, lack self-awareness, and so on. One of the key features of many therapies is helping people piece together their sense of self, their personal story, and learning how to reframe that in a more positive way. For example, moving from a story about being a victim to being a survivor, a shift which kind of emphasizes qualities of strength, endurance, courage, persistence, and so on. So I hope you can see where I'm going with this. You move on to the next feature. So composure is our other leg, the other aspect of our mental health, which really can help keep us grounded. The quote here says, "In the stillness of the quiet, if we listen, we can hear the whisper of the heart, giving strength to weakness, courage to fear, and hope to despair." So it may be most people will find at different times in their lives that we react very emotionally in a way that feels quite out of control. Certainly during the pandemic, many people have reported very intense feelings, waves of emotion, unexplained irritability, and most of us can recognise those feelings at different times when we feel stressed and under pressure. So composure is the ability to and skill to distance ourselves from our thoughts and reduce that emotional intensity and overwhelm. It may be, again, most of us have the experience of being what I call a mental time traveller. So you spend a lot of time doing things automatically, but your mind is busy thinking about things that may have happened in the past or things that are going to happen in the future, often worries about things that might happen in the future. So composure is also about practicing, because practicing being in the present, in whatever you're doing, being mindful of what's happening in the here and now, responding rather than reacting to our thoughts and feelings. So it's not about our making our thoughts and feelings go away. It's about just creating that little bit of distance so that we can observe them and respond, as I say, rather than react. And there are many everyday activities that we do, but that can help us strengthen our composure when we're fully engaged and absorbed in them. So, and everyone's different in the kind of activities that they find absorbing and are fully in the present with. So for some people, physical exercise, some people would describe going out jogging and being in the zone with that. For others, it's creative activities. It might be gardening, cooking, and so on. So again, there are skills involved in this that we can all practice. That's meditation is a good way of practicing the skills of composure, spending time in with nature, connecting with nature, different forms of practicing faith, connecting with inner peace or spirituality. Okay, can you move on to the next slide? So I've talked about the two legs. I'm going to talk about the two arms now. So one arm is a fairly obvious one, connection. This quote being the best thing to hold on to in life is each other. And many people in the ONS stats that I showed earlier, there was a statistic about how most people have kept up their connections with friends and family as a way of looking after their well-being. So think of the right arm as connection. It's, as I said, probably the best known feature of good mental health. It's partly about our close relationships with family and friends, but I always like to talk a little bit more about our wider social network and how important that is. So feeling part of our community through work or friendships, groups, common interests, all these are really important psychologically for our sense of belonging, social status, and so on. And we learn how important this is very early in life. Being isolated or ignored is one of the worst things to experience as a child at school. We know internationally solitary confinement is considered a form of torture. And when we feel stressed, anxious or depressed, we tend to cut ourselves off from other people, which can then become a vicious circle. Redundancy and retirement, for example, are two major life changes which carry a high risk of mental ill health, partly because of the loss of social networks and the sense of belonging associated with that. So just think what that might mean in the context of coronavirus. And also the kind of stigma and discrimination can often mean that people who've experienced a period of mental ill health then find it difficult to re-engage with work, learning or social activities. And another less well-known aspect of connection is our contribution to the world. So there's all sorts of research has been done about how giving is actually really good for our well-being. It helps give us a sense of purpose and self-worth and value to others. Okay, next one, please. Okay, so creativity is the other arm. I think this is the left arm of reaching out to the world. And I love, this is one of my favourite quotes, I think, why should we all use our creative power? Because there is nothing that makes people so generous, joyful, lively, bold and compassionate, so indifferent to fighting and the accumulation of objects and money. So how can we increase our creativity? When I talk about creativity, this is not about being a brilliant artist. It's about remembering how to play, how to use our imagination, how to laugh and have fun. And it may be that we want to develop a creative talent. And it may be that we tell ourselves that we're not good enough at it. That's a very common way in which we are self-critical about talents. Often as adults, we lose touch with playfulness, and as children, we can feel discouraged with our education system from using our imagination and creative expression. Creativity is also about experiencing joy. So this is something I like to talk about joy as different from the idea of having a happy life. Joy is something that even in the midst of difficulty and pain, we can still access joyful moments, and that's really important to hang on to. And yeah, joy is something that's quite easy to lose sight of in our very serious, hard-working lives. Another aspect of creativity is that it's been described as an antidote to existential loneliness. So loneliness is something that we all experience in different ways, and art, music, dance, drama, all those forms of creative expression are actually ways in which we can experience great art in different forms, which kind of connects with our deepest feelings, which can be really difficult to express. So those forms of art can provide solace. They can help us, in our depths of despair, but they can also inspire us and bring out our greatness, if you like. So next slide, please. So finally, the fifth C is challenge. Challenges are what make life interesting. Overcoming them is what makes life meaningful. So the fifth C challenge I described as being the head of the person. because challenge is what we all need to grow and develop. It's about learning and setting ourselves goals, and it's about stepping outside our comfort zone and taking risks. And the thing with challenge is it can feel a really uncomfortable place to be. You need a level of self-confidence and self-motivation to get you through to the other side, to learn or experience something new. And it's very easy to retreat into our comfort zone if we're feeling stressed, anxious, or depressed. And our comfort zone can just get smaller and smaller. For many people during this pandemic, self-isolation, in a way, has been less of a problem than the fear of going outside and the risks associated with this. Because staying in our comfort zone does feel like it has psychological benefits. But the impact of that is that we can become closed off to new opportunities. It creates barriers between ourselves and others, and we can feel afraid of anything different. So the alternative with that is to expand our comfort zone gently, if necessary, gradually building confidence with new experiences and learning. Okay, next slide, please. So finally, I talked about the extra C's that I put in, my 6th and 7th C's. So we do need to approach the 5 C's with compassion, being kind to ourselves, rather than being self-critical. And notice what we're already doing to take care of our mental health. So we are all already doing things to look after our mental health. It's about noticing what they are, and notice that just by being here at this workshop, you're strengthening connection by linking up with others, you're feeling part of a group, you're strengthening challenge by opening yourself up to maybe some new ideas and some learning. And can you move on to, oh, sorry, so stay on that for a minute. I just explained the picture of the bucket. So I use the image of the bucket about being compassionate to ourselves, that it's as if the water in the bucket is our energy and the holes are us giving out energy. You know, for whatever reason, we're giving out energy to work, to other people, maybe caring responsibilities, and if we don't top up that water in the bucket by being kind to ourselves, then the bucket can run dry, and very often that can be what happens to us, and it might feel like one last straw kind of empties the bucket, and we don't necessarily understand that it's been an accumulation of lots of things that have emptied the bucket. So yeah, we especially in times of stress, we need to find ways to top up that bucket, and to look after ourselves. Okay, move on. Next one. So I talked about the outer circle of curiosity as well. So treat all this that I've been talking about, hopefully, and everything in life with curiosity. Ask questions, be interested, and notice what's going on around you. It is said that it's virtually impossible to be curious and depressed at the same time. I like to put that out there as a bit of a challenge, to test that out. A lot of people are familiar with the phrase "curiosity killed the cat," but the origin of that phrase was actually about 400 or 500 years ago in the English language, was "care killed the cat," when care meant worry and anxiety, in the 16th century. The phrase changed in the 19th century, and the theory goes that it changed to curiosity killed the cat, as curiosity became, in Victorian times, a kind of something quite undesirable, and to be discouraged. So I like to think that we should rehabilitate curiosity as being good for our mental health. An influential study by the New Economics Foundation produced a report several years ago called 5 Ways to Wellbeing. And one of these 5 ways was to take notice. And this was what they said: be curious, catch sight of the beautiful, remark on the unusual, notice the changing seasons, savour the moment, whether you're walking to work, eating lunch, or talking to friends. Be aware of the world around you and what you are feeling. Reflecting on your experiences will help you appreciate what matters to you. Okay, the next one, please. So this is just bringing you back to the image of the figure, which hopefully makes a bit more sense. I just want to say something more about the idea of having a framework like this, is that it's that part of the idea of this is about, as I said before, recognizing what we're already doing in our lives, and recognizing that individually we often have strengths in particular areas. So I'm really quite strong. If I look at in terms of my own self-development, I'm quite strong in the areas of connection and challenge. I'm good at networking. I'm great at setting goals for myself, but that can be a bit of a disadvantage if you're feeling stressed and depressed. But certainly when I experienced a particularly bad period of mental ill health, I had to work really hard on, particularly on composure and also creativity as areas that kind of help me build a kind of balance in my life. And so sometimes it's about using those areas that you're stronger in to also help build up the areas that we're not so naturally good at. There's no one size fits all for our mental health, just as there isn't for our physical health. It's always about balance. Okay, the next slide, please. Please do add any questions. I'm just coming to the end now, so this is a kind of an opportunity. If there's any of you that really would like to explore the 5 C's framework in more depth individually, then I am running a course which starts on the 10th of July, which is an online course you can sign up to. Mostly it is you're working on it yourself, with kind of exercises and guidance each week, but still as much a part of a group as we can create online. So there's a kind of community chat for the course and so on. So that starts in 2 weeks' time on the 10th of July, funded by the National Emergencies Trust. And that's part of a programme of courses and workshops that we're running through July and August. So there's a web link there, and I'm sure Ismail will share the web link. So if you want to go and have a look, there's a range of creative workshops, art, movement, and journal writing as well. And there's some other kind of wellbeing courses. So please do have a look if you want to kind of explore things individually. And the last slide. So just to say a couple of other ways if you want to stay in touch. If you just want to go on our website, you can sign up to an e-newsletter. At the moment, that's going out weekly with a kind of blog around looking after our mental health, and also updates on the courses that we're running for our Mental Wealth Academy Summer Online. But the other thing on our website is a whole range of resources that you can link to, lots of resource links around different aspects of working on good mental health. So you can explore those if you're interested as well. Okay, so thank you all very much for listening. Do you want to go on the final slide, which says a big thank you? Okay. Do you want to so open really to any questions or comments or thoughts?
Guys, you can if you ask questions, just unmute yourself and ask questions, please.
Yeah, I can't see anything in the chat, so unless I'm not looking at it right. But if anyone's got any questions or comments, please. Do you want to take down the screen so that we can just see everybody? So perhaps I should ask if that was helpful. If I stunned you all into silence.
Hi. Yeah, first and foremost, thank you very much for that. Mental health is definitely something that means a lot to me and myself and my family. So that's, yeah, it's nice, and it's a great platform that yourself and Rami have created for people to listen, take the knowledge on, and ask questions hopefully later on. Just for me, I always sort of wondered with mental health and stuff, it's the identifiers I always sort of, I don't want to say struggle with, but you know your friends and your family individually. It's when you should sort of step forward and interject, because you don't want to be forceful when you try to help. And that's what I always struggle with. Like, when do you think, oh no, I need to step forward and do something or say something, or maybe not forcefully, but be a bit sort of like, no, you because like you stated, with mental health, a lot of people retract, don't they? They go in and they create this shell and this wall. It's when do you sort of, or how forceful do you be when it comes to breaking through that?
Yeah, it is a difficult one. I mean, I think the most what people generally feel if they're really feeling in a bad place is they want to feel people are alongside them rather than telling them what to do.
Okay.
So that I think I always feel there's something like sharing with someone that you're worried about something that's you're worried about what you've noticed.
Okay.
Perhaps you're just expressing your concern and inviting them to share with you and being willing to listen. That's the other thing is listening to what people have to say, I think, because we're really quick at jumping in with answers.
Yeah, I agree with that. A lot of this is just being a good listener. Sometimes you don't have to say anything. Absolutely nothing.
It really is. We do all feel quite uncomfortable with other people's distress or difficulty, and we want to jump in with, well, why don't you do this, and why don't you do that, and oh, you can get help from here, and as if it's So it's rather than jumping in with solutions, it's, I think, much more about just listening and encouraging people to come up with their own solutions.
I suppose when you're listening as well, you're to a certain degree taking on some of the burden.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're sharing it almost sometimes, possibly, in some cases. Okay.
Yeah. I think the other thing just to think about is sometimes asking people, you know, what helps them feel a bit better.
Okay.
So, you know, is this, so again, it's rather than trying to find a solution to the whole thing, it's just encouraging people maybe to do more of something that makes them feel a bit better, even if it's for a short while. It doesn't have to be the answer, but if you can encourage people to get involved in doing something more regularly, that they feel better when they're doing it. Do you see what I mean? It starts to build their coping mechanisms.
Okay, yeah, sort of grasping on what they like to do or what puts them in a positive mind frame, and then sort of opening that door or reminding them that they can do that again, or we can do it together, sort of thing.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Doing things with.
Carla, we've got a question there from Francesca and Mike.
Mm-hmm.
The chat group, yeah. It's about the creativity, yeah.
Yes. Oh, yes. So, yeah, my creativity is really a weak area for me. I'm just terrible at just, you know, having fun. So the course basically goes through each of the 5 C's and gives you a series of exercises to so that you can kind of explore yourself each of the 5 C's, and then by the end, then what it does is build up over the sessions, so that by the end you can kind of almost look at a kind of personal map of the 5 C's as they, in terms of your own kind of personal situation, and then that in turn helps you to put together a personal action plan. So if you were to find in your kind of self-mapping then that creativity was a particular area that you wanted to work on, just going through that process would help you look at what might help you going forward. Does that make sense? So it might, you know, you might find where there's areas that are particularly strong, that they will help you work on, you know, developing the creativity side. Yeah, personal roadmap. It's you know, it's really important. We're really good at, well, people will say, oh, this is the answer. You know, this helped me, so then this is the answer for everybody. But it isn't. We're all quite different. You know, in all kinds of our circumstances, our life experiences, our personalities, all these things mean that we respond and react in different ways, which makes it confusing, you know, to come up with an answer. Sorry, it was Maine. Were you going to say something?
No, that's fine. I've got a quick question here. It's coming from the person that represents URBOND in the Republic of Guinea.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, he's saying, unfortunately, he couldn't join us today, but he's basically saying, through his role in the Republic of Guinea, he's having to help a lot of people at the moment, especially with the kids we're providing primary education to their parents, and he come across people going through a lot of sort of mental health issues or stressful times and everything. But he's asking how can he make sure he's helping those people go through the difficult times, but at the same time not let it affect his own mental health, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Oh, he's got to look after his own mental health. It's very hard, not, you know, especially if people are going through a lot of distress. It's hard not to take that on board yourself. So it's quite a complicated question, that.
Yeah.
So a number of different things are coming through my mind, like helping. So things like helping people learn about emotions, for example. I think like in schools and with families, just learning about emotions and what's you know, that some distress and difficult emotions are actually perfectly normal in the circumstances that we're in. So that's kind of one level, but then obviously, yes, it is so important for, in his position, to look after his own resilience, to find, you know, to look at ways that will help him psychologically to not take on board other people's distress.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I mean, I think it's a hugely complicated. There's probably a number of different levels to talk to him, and if he wanted to contact me separately and discuss it more fully, I'd be quite happy. But obviously, I don't really know what the circumstances are.
Absolutely.
To give a kind of glib response.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I think that makes perfect sense. What I'm going to do, I'll definitely it's either basically I'll get him to email you directly and copy me in, or contact you and sort of like, you know, have a chat. But it's also very important to us because he's doing a fantastic job in the Republic of India.
Yes, yeah. Sure. I mean, I think, you know, it's it really, it's, you know, within the sort of the pandemic and all, you know, all the multiple other problems that will come up in other countries that you know, it's in a lot of ways don't affect us so badly here. But I think that being on the front line of all this is hugely stressful for people, and they really, looking after their own mental health is really important. I have, I'll be happy to talk to him more.
Okay, no, that's good. That's good. The other question we have here is the workshop you're planning on the 10th of July, starting on the 10th of July. Just to confirm, is absolutely free for people to sort of like join in and take the course, right? Yes,
yeah, it's all free. It's a 7-week course, but being online, obviously being online, what happens is the materials are then made available each week, and people more, you know, do work on it themselves, but I will give guidance each week as well. So I do a presentation each week on the different aspects of it to kind of hopefully set the tone, and then people work on it themselves in between. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Good stuff. Really good. Any more questions there for Caroline? I think we've got Yvonne online. We've got Dina. We've got Musa as well. So it'd be really nice. People are logging in from London and Leicester, so it's really nice to sort of like, you know, ask questions if you have any, obviously.
I did you, Usman, did you last time I sent you the PDF, didn't I, of the kind of booklet? Did I did send you that last time, did you? I'm just thinking that if people wanted something to read, you know, that's got similar information to the talk that I've given, but I can resend that to you if that would be helpful.
Yeah, that's all basically. That's all saved on our website. So if yeah, it's all set on our website. And if you guys want, you can go onto our website. It's www.urbond.org. It's on the blog. So if you go on the blog, you will be able to see the presentation from last week and also the blog. Sorry, the booklet, which is the PDF booklet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, just. Oh yes. Yes. Just answering about are the questions live for the course? Are they live and recorded? It is all recorded, and yes, if you're back in the US, you would be able to download and look at everything in your own time. That's fine. Yeah.
Fantastic. No, that's great. That's great. Caroline, thank you very much. Thank you so much for this. It means a lot to us because, again, as I said, we have so many different sort of like groups in Portsmouth, and we've got like massive following as well internationally. It's important for us to sort of like keep doing this to help people sort of like get back to their strength and normality. So, you allowing to sort of like work with us, it means a lot to us, and thank you very much for this. This obviously is going to be this is our second part of 3 workshops. So we've got the final one. But as soon as I sit down with Caroline, we decided when we can do that. We then basically ask that to you guys and let you know. What's also important is to let us know which areas you want sort of like to know more. So we can kind of like, we can let Caroline know so she can make a presentation and then talk to us about that. And the good thing is, again, this is free to us to access it. Most people pay for these kind of things. But this has definitely helped me a lot, and it's helping a lot of people because I didn't know a lot of stuff about mental health. So it's really, really good to go through this with you, Caroline.
Okay.
And if you are joining us for the first time, URBOND, we are a fully registered charity. We operate internationally and nationally. We've been going on for the past 7 years, and we help issues and help our community build a bigger and stronger community. Our objective, we are promoting equality and diversity for the public benefit. We want to eliminate discrimination on the ground of sex, race, or religion. We are basically promoting activities to foster better understanding between the people from different cultures. And we also basically help advance education by providing free primary education to children in need. This is important to us. Again, you can see the 5 component of mental health work there. It's just kind of giving back sometimes, make you feel so good about yourself sometimes. But my best really advice to you guys, why you should join URBOND, because we run so many different activities, we're impacting people's life nationally and internationally. Last year we ran 244 activities. We have we're impacting 127 kids at the moment, lives in the Republic of Guinea. We're building our own school to sort of provide free primary education to these children. Be part of it. These are the reasons why you should be part of it. And let's all come together. Let's see what we can do. Let's see what we can do to help other people in need. Obviously, with all the issues going on at the moment as well, in terms of racial equality and all these different things, we're here to sort of this is funny because last year or even the year before, people always ask, what's the reason why we should join URBOND? And people are coming to realization now that URBOND is so important in the community, because for the past 7 years, we've been fighting for sort of to help people integrate into the community. And unless we all sort of are talking about it and then posting stuff online is good. There's nothing wrong about it's always good to sort of make awareness about all these social issues, whatever it is online. But the most important is to get up and do things. To me, that's and to so many of us, that's the most important thing. And URBOND is here as a platform to express that. We're here as a platform to sort of give back and help people in the community and help people beyond our community. So I think it's important for all of us. These are the main reasons why you should join the group. You should come to us. You could we're not asking to be a follower. We're asking people to join us. Let's work together. We need everyone. give everyone's like ideas how we can basically shape a lot of issues like moving forward. So if you have any questions, guys, please ask. It's very, very important. Or send us emails. You can get us like through URBOND, info@urbond.org. Or if you want to get, most of you guys have got my contact details, or you've got Hans or Frank, Kwame's contact details, just get in touch. Let's speak about things. We're coming back to normality. We're going to come bigger and stronger. Obviously, we have people who are like, wanting to come back bigger and stronger. We're already shaping activities to sort of like come back bigger and stronger. So get involved. We've got a charity board already booked. So if you want to get involved, please let us know. And we'll make sure like, you've got everything needed to sort of like get involved in what we're looking to achieve. Okay. But thank you very much again, guys. Thank you for joining in. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. If you have any questions, please ask. If you don't have any questions, that will be it. But we have got, as you can see there, Hans have just shared a link. And if you could all please, like on the chat, if you all, you can click on that link and then give us like your feedback, how we can sort of like improve the next workshop and how we can also improve as an organization. It's very, very important to us because this is by the community and for the community. So it's important to know how you feel and how you want us to shape moving forward so we can give what's needed in the community. Okay, so if you click on the chat, you'll be able to see it. Just click it. I think it's just like 5 questions, and then just like click it and then just like submit it for us to be able to sort of like, improve moving forward. All right. So that's it. Apart from that, if you could please give us your feedback. Apart from that, it's all from me here and the URBOND team. But on behalf of obviously myself and the URBOND team, thank you so much for taking time with your busy schedule to join us here today. It's really, really important and it's meaning a lot to us.